Hello, we are continuing to highlight innovations that have occurred at the College of Veterinary Medicine. Joining me today is Lysa Posner and Julie Balko. Thank you for joining me. And let's just start with a little bit about yourselves.
So I'm Lysa Posner. I am a professor of anesthesiology. I've been at NC State for 15 years now.
My name is Julie Balko. I'm also an assistant professor of anesthesiology here at NC State. And much like Lysa, even though my training is in anesthesiology by trade, I also have a really strong interest in non-domestic species, particularly from a research perspective, but also from a clinical perspective as well.
And you two collaborated on the innovation, correct?
Julie Balko and I started on our interest in euthanizing fish because what we found during a different experiment was that the current recommendations from the AVMA were not appropriate for euthanizing fish. So our initial model were goldfish, but we have shown this in other species also, that the current recommendations to use a drug called trypain or MS-222 for euthanasia actually does not euthanize most of the fish. In our initial study, 95% of the fish that we thought we were euthanizing by using the appropriate AVMA recommendations or guidelines lived. So we immediately realized that there was a hole in our understanding. And so Julie and I have collaborated on, from the beginning, when we first realized this wasn't working the way we thought it did, to some of the newer projects that she is working on now.
I'll just add in that there are so many humane implications. So fish are a very vast, diverse taxa. There's over 33,000 different species of fish, and hundreds and thousands of them are euthanized every year. And as Lysa mentioned, the current standard was using this drug called MS-222. That's actually an immersion anesthetic. So you put it in the water and put the fish in that water, and they will become anesthetized with it. And then when we're using it for quote unquote euthanasia, you will give them an overdose of that drug. So the humane implication comes in that these fish that we thought we were euthanizing by giving an overdose of the drug were probably just in a deep plane of anesthesia. And so when practitioners, researchers, biologists, veterinarians are attempting to euthanize these animals, really what they're doing is just creating a deep plane of anesthesia. And then they take that fish and put it in the necropsy freezer or throw it in the trash. And at some point in the near future after that, that fish recovers from anesthesia. And so that's where the humane implication comes in. So we've identified that the current technique doesn't work. And so we've been trying different permutations of the drug. If we can administer it at a higher dose, if we can administer it via a sort of different technique. We've been trying to force it over the gills to see if prolonged continuous uptake will result in euthanasia. So we've been investigating different permutations of that drug, but also trying to investigate other techniques so that we can successfully and humanely euthanize fish. So it really was this huge shock to the fish community to know that what we were doing, it makes us really uncomfortable. And I think Lysa will agree that this isn't the most comfortable or best research to be pursuing from a comfort level perspective. We didn't want to identify that this didn't work, right? Because that would have tremendous implications for the people that have been using that technique in terms of things that may have been happening with their patients from a humane perspective. And so it really was a huge shock to the aquatic community to know that this technique that everyone had really used for so many years was probably not working the way that we thought it did.
It was interesting that the first time that we presented this was at an aquatic conference, and the initial reaction was like, that's just not true. You're doing it wrong. You've done something wrong. That's just not true. And of course we verified, but then we expanded, and all of their concerns that maybe we did it wrong in some way or another, we basically proved were not true. And each year that we have presented more of this data, the more that the aquatic community accepts that this is a problem and has started to change their techniques based on our information. If we are preventing some suffering from research animals or pet animals or whatever, then we've done a good thing.
It's kind of amazing you guys were able to discover this and change it for the better. Great work. Thank you for sharing it, and keep it up.
Thank you.
They're moving. Yeah, I see them.
Yeah, they're giant goldfish now. So we literally spent over a year trying to euthanize this group of fish, and they just kept living. And so we decided that, I decided that they earned a retirement, and so bought a 40-gallon tank and put them in my house.
That's awesome.